one thing that's helped me when I start finally studying the Bible in New York is that, okay, this is not shying away from the fact that there's going to be suffering and there's going to be a lot of it and it's going to suck and it's going to be tribulations and trials. And Jesus says, I mean, don't be surprised if the world hates you. It hated me first. So there's all of that in there. And then you see the world around you and you're like, well, okay, that makes sense. Look at the suffering. Look at all this crap. I mean, so it's heartbreaking, but it's like, okay, the Bible at least is being honest about it.
Yeah.
And I tell an atheist, they go, well, how does atheism explain that? The suffering and all that, so it can't because we're just floating in the breeze, so that's kind of the caveat and that's what I found out is that thank God it's not up to me. Good Lord. Bill Crafton even said, if it's up to me, I'm toast.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's like, you go to the gates of St. Peter and you go to the gates of heaven and St. Peter says, why should I let you in? 9 times out of 10, people are going to say, well, I've been a pretty good person. It's not like I've killed anybody. It's not like I'm Hitler.
Yeah.
And I haven't, I've lived a pretty good life. Technically, according to the gospel, that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook, the podcast where we welcome business leaders, CEOs, and industry experts to discuss the rise to the top, building wealth, and real estate insights. Here's your host, Jeremy Spann.
Welcome to Winning Strategies Playbook. For more information on this show, you can go to our website, myexperiencedrealtor.com. That's experienced with an ED. Click on podcast, scroll down to this episode and other episodes where you can download them from all the different platforms. Click the read more, learn more about the guests. Naturally, if you're looking to buy and sell real estate anywhere on the planet, go to the homepage, click find a trusted professional. Doesn't matter where it's at. We'll do all the legwork, make sure you get someone who's not a moron that can actually help you buy and sell real estate. And I'm trying to be extra funny because you'll click on that podcast button to download episode, whatever number this one will be with my good friend, Gordon Rhodes. Welcome to the show, Gordy.
Oh, thank you so much. Sir. Thank you so much, my friend.
Man, I've been trying to get you on here for a year, and you were always coming up with all kinds of excuses.
Well, I think you're the one that's too busy, actually, is what's been happening.
Like,
you're kind of blowing and going all over the place.
Well, that's par for the course for me, though, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so my father-in-law said when I started the show, I got to start off with a joke.
Okay.
So I do a joke at the beginning of all of these, and these are intentionally not good jokes. Okay.
Well, and it's good to follow your father-in-law's advice. Actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I hope whenever he listens to these, it annoys him. Like why did I ever get him to do that? Why does he keep bringing my name up? All right. So I thought this would be fitting for you since your nickname is G Money. Being a Gordon.
One of the many names.
One of the many names.
Yeah.
I know they say that money talks, but mine always says goodbye.
That would be that joke would be good for me in the poker games we play. And that's when
mine says goodbye to you quite often, right? And then you usually make it quite a bit further than I do.
But then mine says goodbye pretty quickly after that.
Not afterwards, as long as you're not out before me, right?
That's right. That's right.
So Gordon and I know each other from Fort Worth Club. Been friends down there for good 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And there's a poker game that goes on at Fort Worth Club that we've been playing in together for many years, and we've just run in the same circles and just been friends for a long time. And I give him a hard time because his name's up on the building and all that, and so because his name's on the building,
finagled that with Walter.
Oh yeah, I know. And so because his name's on the building, it felt like I had to annoy him. So when they used to come out with a quarterly Fort Worth Club magazine, I purposely do the whole entire centerfold just so I'd be like, you might be on the building, but I got the centerfold.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So, first time I met Jeremy was this guy, I forgot who it was that wanted me to meet you, but we were in the library at the Fort Worth. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, this was before the Davey O'Brien one was opened up. Yeah.
So we were in the library, and all of a sudden this big boisterous guy, Jeremy Spann, comes in, and I was like, oh, this guy seems fun. And so we sit down, and literally I was about to order a drink, and all of a sudden the waitress comes over with a bottle of Middleton's and just sets it down in the middle of the table. Didn't say a word. And I'm like, So who is this guy? What's going on
Who
with
is this guy, and why does he get bottle service at a club where my name's on the building?
Yeah, he
damn
gets
it?
a bottle delivered to him. So that was pretty fun. That was pretty fun. So that was my first introduction to Middleton's, actually.
Yeah.
So,
and still long-time listener, long-time fan
exactly,
of it, right?
Exactly, of course.
Yeah. Oh, man, I love it. So I consider Middleton's the 30-year Macallan of Irish whiskeys, right?
And it's hard to find. It's not totally easy to find.
No, it is definitely hard to find. Yeah. I usually keep a couple bottles up at the house in Colorado, just because you can't find it up there. At least I haven't found it. And I don't keep any bottles down here because I really don't drink that much when I'm up in Colorado. But when I'm down here, I drink a lot. And I'm like, well, I really don't need to be drinking a lot of $400 booze, you know?
Yeah, that's a little expensive.
Burn through that one real quick.
More expensive than Johnny Walker Blue. So
and I'm not, I've never been a Johnny Walker Blue fan. I've never been a Johnny Walker fan, period.
Yeah. I like the blue. The blue's smooth. I like the blue, but I don't buy it very often because obviously, it's too expensive to buy too often.
Oh, yeah. Now, you are big into beer.
Yeah, I was a beer fan. Although, I'll tell you what, as I've gotten older, it's gotten harder and harder to kind of be able to continue to be into beer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You know why? That's because it's called calories and we're getting older.
Calories and acid reflux and whatever. It's just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there's a reason why when you get older, you stop wearing khakis.
But yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, I still like beer though. I like a good IPA or a good lager or
Well, you did what do you still do this deal? That was it like Bible and Beer?
Yeah, the Bible and Beer Consortium.
Yeah.
It's that 501c3 that we have. Yeah. Well, COVID shut that down for a little bit. And it's still, to this day, we haven't done an event since COVID. But the Facebook page is alive and well.
The Facebook page is doing well.
The Friends of the BBC is what it's called.
Right. The BBC.
Yeah, we call it the BBC, the Bible and Beer Consortium.
Oh, I was about to say, that also stands for another of other things.
It does.
Might not rhyme with the Bible and Beer Consortium right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Gage is looking at Gage. Our sound engineer over here is cracking up. You know where I was going.
He knows where he's talking.
Yeah, I know where your mind's at. It's down in the gutter, isn't it, Gage?
But yeah, no, it's been a great group. It's been a great experience. It's the one place where I've seen atheists and Christians come together. To debate. And
Tell me about
discuss.
that. Talk about that.
So it started. Ezra Boggs started the group back in 2013, and he basically had the mentality of there is no gospel-free zone, and so he thought about where would Jesus be if he came back today? Would he be in the churches? No, he'd be in the pubs and the bars talking to people. And so he thought, this is great. Let's do a deal where we go into pubs and bars. We bring in speakers, an atheist and a Christian, to debate and discuss, and then we have a Q&A. And it started out where it was just a Christian speaker, but then as we got going, we realized the debates are it's just a little bit more. Let's get both sides right, so we can bring in more people of all backgrounds. And it really has just been an amazing, and the atheists love us. They go, oh, this is so great that y'all do this, and the fact that y'all aren't scared to talk about this stuff, and that's what was so appealing to me, was that they weren't scared to talk about the hope that they had and they do it with gentleness and respect, as 2 Peter says. So it's really been a fun group. I mean, COVID shut us down, obviously. And then the Friends of the Bible and Beer Facebook page is still up and running. And there's a lot of avid discussers on there that like to chime in and give their 2 cents. And but it's been good. It's been great. Ezra lives up in Gainesville, so he actually doesn't live in Fort Worth anymore. But we still, whenever we start him back up, and then it got to a point before COVID where we were doing it all over the state. I mean, we'd have an event in Austin where we'd bring in these speakers.
How often were y'all doing it?
Like maybe once a month, something like that, once every couple months, depending on it. It's really, we're such a small ragtag group of misfits, that's what I tell people, that it depends on Ezra's schedule, or it depends on me and Micah, who's our IT guy, who we couldn't do it without him. I mean, he was just amazing. And he would live stream it.
Really?
So, I mean, if you go to the YouTube page, there's tons of old, the Bible and Beer YouTube page.
Bible and Beer YouTube page.
Bible and Beer Consortium YouTube page. There's tons of great debates and talks on there from everywhere from the Door in Dallas, the bar or the Prophet Bar in Dallas, to the World of Beer here in Fort Worth, the Old Gingerman before before they got rid of that. That was the first place we had it. It was the
Why did that thing get tore down?
I don't know. I do not know.
That place was a pretty hardline staple for a long time.
And it all of a sudden was gone.
Like
And then
literally. Now it's just a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
So
I don't think they built anything there. I don't know. I haven't driven down there.
And the bars loved us because we would bring people in on a Sunday night. Like it was a Sunday night when we do it.
Yeah.
And usually they would never get not nearly the patrons. And so they'd get beer business. They're like, oh, yeah, y'all come on, do it. This is great.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's been fun. It's been fun. But it's kind of low key now. It hadn't had as many.
Yeah. And then weren't you with part Neil getting the beer club started up there?
I wasn't a part of that, but Neil was trying to get me. He was like, Gordon, you got to join. But that was right around the time of my life where kids were just getting a little bit busier.
Yeah.
And I was becoming more of a taxi. Because Drew's 14 and Madeline's 11 now. So.
Oh, right in the middle of sports and everything else.
Yeah, all that theater too.
All theater.
I mean, Drew's theater is just insane. So
it's like 7 nights a week, right?
Yeah.
Literally.
And Julie, my wife, doing what she does as a profession. I mean, sometimes I have to be Mr. Mom. So Julie is a professional actress here in town, and so she does theater, musical theater, and regular theater. So when that takes over, and when she gets a show, I mean, it's like, I have rehearsal every night this week, from 6 to 9 or whatever. So it's like, all right, well, I guess I'm dealing with the kids.
Yeah,
so no which is fine.
No hanging out on the 11th floor. Going
to play poker at but anyway, but it's been great though. It's been fine. But so that's kind of the scoop there.
Yeah, we got a lot. We got a lot to peel back. That we'll have more to peel back than what we have time for today. But let's talk to the audience about who you are, where you come from, how you got to where you're at. Walk us through your journey from growing up to getting back here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when I was 5, no, I'm kidding. No, grew up in Fort Worth. Actually, grew up on Berkeley Place in Fort Worth, off of Forest Park. Went to Paschal High School. Graduated class of '96 of the Purple Panthers. And when I graduated Paschal, and all I knew at that point is that I wanted to go to Texas A&M. Because I went there for tennis camp, because I played tennis in high school. And my dad said, hey, A&M has a good tennis program. Go down there for summer camp. You can learn, if you want to join varsity, in tennis, you got to. So I go down to College Station thinking I was going to hate it, because I grew up in the shadow of TCU. And TCU, when I was a kid, was in the Southwest Conference and always hated A&M, And so I thought, oh, fine, I'll go down there. Well, I fell in love with it. I mean, they sold me. It wasn't just tennis. It was also selling you on the traditions and all that stuff. So by the time I got into Texas A&M at Paschal, I was graduating. I was like, okay, great. My life's settled. Well, a couple of years into A&M, my dad says, Gordon, you can't major in being an Aggie. Thank goodness, right? Thank goodness. Thank goodness that's the case. And I was like, well, okay. He's like, so what are you going to do with your life, And I was like, well, that's a good point. He's like, because, you're eventually going to graduate. I'm not going to pay for this forever. And so, so basically while I was at A&M, that was when I decided my first love was I wanted to be involved in the TV and film industry. That was I loved movies growing up. I loved what a movie could do to an audience. And so I thought that's what I wanted to do. And so I ended up, and he's like, so you should, speaking of this my dad's like, oh, so you want to be a film person and you're going to A&M. Great. That's not really teaching you much there. And so I majored in speech communication, minored in business, and quickly moved up to New York City right after that. May of 2001 is when I moved up there after my Europe trip, backpacking trip with a buddy. And flew straight into LaGuardia and starting my new life. I ended up getting a job up there as a production assistant on a daytime talk show with Buena Vista Television. And that's a long story about how I was able to finagle my way into that job. Just persistence and talk, this connection that my parents had with this gal that lived up there that was a producer. And so for 6 months, I hounded her, just telling her from College Station, I'm calling her, saying, hey, I really want to be in this business. Anyway. And so long story short, the director ends up calling me and tells me to come up and I got a spot for you, but I can't, it's $500 a week. Like that's it. But if you can get to the city and live up here. And so sure enough, I was like, oh, I'm coming. So went to New York, worked for them for 9 months. 9/11 happened while I was up there. I was in Midtown when that happened, and that forever, of course, changed a lot of things. The show after that, everyone was watching the news, and so a new talker just couldn't take off. So this lady, she was trying to be like Oprah, and it just wasn't working, and so the show ended up getting canceled. I ended up working for The Late Show with David Letterman, which was fun for the first 3 months, and then it kind of was like, okay, this is great. I'm seating the audience, and not really. I mean, it kind of lost its luster, but I stuck with it. There was no movement in the company. I couldn't move up because that place is such a well-oiled machine. And so I ended up quitting there after basically the second year and took odd jobs after that to try to survive. Ended up getting involved with some guys called New World Pictures, which was a company down here in Texas. And that was because of my dad. One of the guys was helping my dad with his marketing. And he goes, oh, we got a movie company. And my dad's like, oh, my son's. Anyway, that was the connection there. And so I ended up talking to them for a year before they said, well, if you want to move back to Texas, we got a spot for you. We're shooting a low budget feature over in Las Colinas in 2003. And so if you want to get back down here. And so I was like, well, I was dating this girl, Julie, and she was down there. So that makes sense. New York, I'm kind of doing odd jobs. I'm not really, okay. So I just felt God calling me back. And so I ended up renting a car, packing up my crap, and driving cross country back to Texas, and ended up living with my parents during the shooting of the movie. Well, then I ended up getting an apartment in Irving. The movie was a great experience. It was amazing to be a part of it, but we had no money. So at the end of shooting, we were out of money. And this was before I was involved with the business I'm in now, of course. And so I told my director, I was still trying to get this girl to marry me. I was thinking, okay, I probably want to marry this girl. Her dad's, I don't know if he's going to let me if I don't have a job. And so, so what happened? So basically I said to my director, I said, look, my dad knows some investors. Maybe I could sell them on this deal and raise some money to finish this movie. And so my director's like, yeah, have at it. If you think you can do it. I mean, here's the limited liability partnership. Here's the private placement. Whatever you can do, that'd be awesome. Because we need to do payroll. We need to pay off our taxes. We need to go into the post and cut the movie and all that. So I was like, all right. I mean, it was a sharp movie. I liked it. I thought it was good. It was a good story. And so anyway, I ended up doing that, and I ended up raising money to finish the movie, about 30 or 40 grand. And so that gave me the associate producer status on the movie. That also led me to Rhodes Securities, where I am now. And so while we were waiting for the movie to take off, my dad, who is the head of Rhodes Securities, said, Gordon, you're waiting for this movie to take off. I need some help. Maybe you could come in and learn the family business a little bit. No pressure. I'm not trying to get you to, and I was like, but it'll give you a paycheck. You'll be able to keep that apartment in Irving. I'm pretty sure Julie's dad would like that, kind of making a joke. So I said, all right, yeah, you're right, I guess. I'm kind of, all right, whatever. And so I ended up working for Rhodes Securities in 2004, or end of 2003, 2004, and start helping with copies and just random crap, answering the phones. And sure enough, ended up falling in love with it. I enjoyed it. I loved looking at the stock market. I loved investing. I loved the idea of helping people with their money and getting them on the right track. And so I just really started to like it. Thank the Lord, because the movie really wasn't going anywhere. So as these things go. And so, anyway, ended up getting my Series 7 after that, 6 months to a year later. Ended up, I've gotten a few more, Series 24, Series 27. So long story short, here we are in 2022. I'm now the CEO of Rhodes Securities. I have a book of business, and I'm also helping with the day-to-day of the company. And so it's been a weird, loopy journey to going from New York back to Texas in a kind of this grand loop is what I call it. And then Irving, and then officially back to Fort Worth. Now we live in Fort Worth. And so, so as far as the business journey, that's it. Along with that, in New York and everything, it sprinkled the spiritual journey and the faith-based journey, but that's a whole other caveat to the story. But yeah, it's not one of those things. People when they talk to me, they go, "Oh, so A&M, you must have majored in business and worked for your dad right afterwards." No, it's not how it went. I had to find myself first, I think. It took New York to bring me back, if that makes sense. So, and 9/11 had a huge part. I mean, that was a big play on that whole thing. So yeah, and now I'm here and I got to meet you. So, I mean, if it wasn't for any of that, I probably wouldn't have met you. So,
well, so couple questions. What was the name of the movie?
So the name of the movie was called Echoes of Innocence.
Echoes of Innocence. Did it ever make the...
You might be able to find it on like Amazon or something. You might be able to find a DVD of it. It was a faith-based film about a high school senior girl who has visions and hears voices, much like Joan of Arc. So in 7th grade, she did this book report on Joan of Arc and was captivated, and she was real strong in her faith. And so she started to have these visions and hear these voices as she got into high school. And she kind of became a goth kind of looking girl and was kind of an interesting. All the kids in the high school called her the Virgin because she had, so the movie has a very true love waits message of, she met this boy in 7th grade. They promised themselves to each other. Well, one night in the middle of the night, mysteriously, he takes off. He can't tell her why, but he's jumping in this limo to take off and he has to escape. But promise me, Sarah, you'll wait for me. And so she says, okay, I promise, but where you, and he's like, I can't tell you. Oh my gosh, have faith, Anyway, so then the story picks up when she's in high school. She's still waiting, but she's in high school now and all that stuff that goes on there. And so anyway, interesting story. There's also another side story to the movie of she has a vision about this boy in the high school who's going to bomb the school, one of kind of the trench coat mafia kind of kids. Mm-hmm. And it has that kind of message. So it's a thriller, but it's also, anyway, it was I loved it. I mean, the acting was great. I love the kids we got to act in it. And in fact, Jake McDorman, who was one of the actors, you've probably seen. He's been on some big stuff since then. He was on American Sniper with Bradley Cooper.
Okay.
And so he played Bradley's good friend in the movie who got this diamond for his fiance or something and got shot. And anyway, so that's Jake. And so he was in our movie. I mean, I played golf with the kid. He was a super nice guy. And so anyway, he's the one guy from the movie who's kind of gone on to have some notoriety. So yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, low budget film. So yeah, you're filming.
Did the kid ever come back? The one that leaves in the limo?
At the end of the movie, it turns out he's one of the kids in the high school the whole time. And he was getting to know Sarah the whole time, but not telling her that it was him. And I guess she did. That's the only thing my wife didn't like about it, is that she doesn't recognize him. I mean, surely it was only 6th grade or 7th grade. I was like, well, a lot of people change in middle school. I don't. So anyway, that was the only thing that was a little
puberty supercharged him.
Yeah, supercharged. Right? She didn't recognize him. Yeah. So anyway, it was a good experience.
So what was it like working with David Letterman?
Letterman was very reclusive, very private. Did not talk to him once, really.
Really?
I saw him. He walked past me a couple times. He would always run the hall beneath the studio before a show. So as an audience page, if I'm standing there guarding, he would just run right past me. Just wasn't very friendly. I mean, once the cameras were on, he was great and funny, obviously, which is, what he's good at. But he just was kind of introverted. Interesting. Now, all of his staff, like all the famous people on there, like Biff, even Paul Schaefer, were super friendly. I mean, they were down to earth guys. I mean, and Biff got famous for a while there and he was great. I mean, he was very, just a great guy. And then, Paul Schaefer was fun. I mean, he was real nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, everyone there was pretty friendly. I mean, we were all young and single in the city and from different places. And so we kind of all stuck together and became good friends.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of neat to have that, to be in this big city. And I'm from Fort Worth and she's from Roanoke, North Carolina, and, and we just kind of bonded. We kind of all bonded and we'd go get drinks after, stuff like that. So it was a neat experience, but it just wasn't going anywhere money wise and everything. I mean, I gave my resume to the director. I was trying to, and he's like, oh yeah, this is great. This is good. This is what you got to do.
And he turned around, puts it in the
Yeah. He's like, this is great. Yeah. There you go. Oh, you're a page. Okay. See ya.
Yeah.
So it just, it didn't, unfortunately, but it's a well-oiled machine. So nobody left.
Yeah.
So if you were good at what you did and you were there, you were there. I mean, for the duration. The neatest thing I ever did, I got to do, was Dave Matthews was playing on the roof of the Ed Sullivan Theater. And they filmed it for the show, but then he was going to do a couple more songs because they were just, since he's set up, they were going to film it for something else. And the security guards were like, hey, y'all want to go up? Come on, let's go. And we're like, are you serious? Like, so we got to go up to the roof of the Ed Sullivan Theater and watch him live, Dave Matthews play, which was really, that was my favorite band at the time. So that was huge. So
That's pretty awesome.
It was
I'm a
fun.
big Matthews fan, you know. So two things I want to definitely touch on that you mentioned is you mentioned some faith-based things that happened while you were in New York. You want to talk about that?
Sure.
You don't have to step on them if you don't want to.
If you want,
landmines.
If your audience wants to, you know.
So here's what I'll tell you. Okay, here's a couple of reasons I do this show. One, it's America. And if it's America, guess what? To me, a podcast is the last. Having a show like this is the last true form of what I call the First Amendment ability for people to say things.
Yeah.
Whether, and I'm not here to necessarily debate things, right? I want to hear content. I mean, if the show was about Jeremy Spann, we would have made it 6 episodes in and nobody would listen to anything else, right? And our 80th episode dropped this week. We're recording 16 episodes this week.
That's awesome.
You know, because we record once a quarter. And so what I tell folks is like, look, this is your time. You're the guest. You're the content, right? And you got something to say it, you know? I mean, you know, and like our guest this morning, you know, Gage was over there kind of shaking his head at, is brought up something just really, really interesting, right? So I was not necessarily for it. I wasn't necessarily against it. I was just interested in learning more about it.
Right.
So, and here's the other great thing. If somebody's listening to this episode and they don't like what you say, well, they can hit pause or stop and move on down, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so let's dive into it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, if you want to, well, that starts, I guess, back when I was a kid. I grew up, in the beginning of my childhood, we grew up never going to church. You know, my dad would play tennis on Saturdays and drink beer, right? And so that's kind of what my childhood was up until a point. Well, then up until a point, something changed, and I ended up going to we started going to church on Sunday randomly, and that was around my middle school years and then high school years, getting into my high school years. Now, the caveat to this whole thing is that was great for socialness. That was great for meeting people. I didn't really think about it, right? So I looked at church back then like it was a country club. It's like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. You know, okay, yeah, I'm a Christian. Well, why are you a Christian? Well, I guess I'm not Jewish, right? I mean, what else can you be? You know, like I'm not Islam, I'm not Hindu. So you got to be something, you know. So that's kind of the way I looked at it and that's subconsciously, that's how I looked at it going when I went to UCC. So I went to UCC over near TCU's campus, and it was great. I mean, the people were great, so friendly. I mean, I made some good friends there at the time, but they didn't really teach me anything, and that's probably not totally their fault. It's probably, you know, I just wasn't listening. But I loved the summer camps. I loved all that stuff, but I just didn't necessarily believe it per se. But at the time, I would have said I did. At the time, I probably, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, Jesus, that's great. So, you know, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, JC, my man.
That's cool. Yeah.
What's up? Yeah.
You're in good company. Yeah. Like on Meet the Parents. And so you know, so that was kind of the way it was. I got into A&M. Of course, A&M, I was all about me and chasing girls and drinking and having fun and being an Aggie, like my dad was joking about. So at A&M, I really didn't get much anything faith-based either. There were people that tried. I met people that would talk to me and stuff, and it was always interesting. I always loved it. I remember going to Breakaway. There was this thing at A&M called Breakaway, which is this huge Wednesday night, I think it was Wednesday night, music, where they play Christian music, and this guy talks, and everyone goes. And the only reason I wanted to go is because I knew girls went there. So, you know, I was like, oh yeah, the girls go there. Yeah. So I'd go to Breakaway on occasion, and I always liked it. I always like, oh, this is, you know, I felt like there's a Seinfeld where George Costanza says they were talking about Christian music in her car. Like Elaine was dating Putty, and he had Christian. She's like, is it possible that he's about something? Like, you know, and he goes, and George is just sitting there. He goes, I like Christian music. Very uplifting. You know, but that's it. It's not like it meant it. It's just more like, yeah, it's uplifting. So that's kind of the way I looked at it, and so still didn't, so then I go up to New York. And when I was in New York, something happened, and I don't know what it was, but something inside of me, maybe I saw someone on the street corner preaching or so, I don't know what it was, but something inside, and I was up there by myself. I was out of the bubble of A&M and literally in this huge city alone. I mean, it really felt that way. And so something got into me that basically said, okay, what is it with this guy? I mean, I see people who love him. I see people who hate him. What is the deal with this Jesus guy? So I was like, okay, what is this just a bunch of BS? Is this just a psychological crutch? What is it? Is it I don't want to be bamboozled. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the point that I got to, is I said, I don't want to be bamboozled. Okay. Is this a fairy tale or is this legit? Right. So I started looking into it. I was like open-mindedly. I said, okay, let me read some books. Maybe there's some books out there. I don't know. Besides the Bible. I don't want to look at the Bible yet, but I'll look at some other stuff. And so sure enough, I started to find books. Lee Strobel, C.S. Lewis, Josh McDowell, just to name 3 authors right there. C.S. Lewis obviously being the famous apologetic from the 50s and 40s and stuff. And so I started reading. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Lee Strobel, this proof of the resurrection, there's some legit stuff here. I mean, that's interesting. Maybe it's, okay. But rising from the dead, come on. So I still was kind of not there. And up to that point, this is the side note, up to that point, every pastor I had ever heard preach, it was the best way I can put it is very fluffy. It was very fluffy, be a good person, live a good life, do the best you can, and let's go out there and work hard together, right? The sermons were kind of self-help. So that was all I had known about sermons. I mean, from the church I went to on down. And so while I'm up there, this girl, again, a girl, but this girl, Mindy Morin, who's she's married now in Dallas, actually, and great. We were really, because she was from Texas, so we really bonded up in the city. And she said, Gordon, if you're searching, I was like, yeah, I guess I am still searching. And she's like, well, there's a church over here on the west side, a lot of young people, a lot of diversity. I mean, it's really kind of neat. I was like, okay, what's it called? And she goes, well, it's called Redeemer Presbyterian. I was like, okay, well, is there a pastor? She's like, yeah, the pastor's name is Tim Keller, which in Christian circles, if there was someone here who was in a big evangelical Christian circle would say, what, Tim Keller? Oh my God. Tim Keller is like now at the forefront of apologetics in this country. That was when he was just Tim Keller, a pastor of Redeemer Presbyterian. So I didn't know who he was, but I was like, all right, I'll go check it out. He's a pastor. He's going to be biased. I don't know if I want to. So anyway, I ended up going to this church, and he absolutely blew me away with his intellect. He was smart. He was logical. He was very brilliant as far as the intellect behind it. And he loved Jesus. And yet he still had this faith-like, childlike love, so it was just very interesting to me. So Tim Keller really helped flip in my mind a little bit. It's like, okay, maybe there's something to this. So what does that mean? I mean, if there is something to it, what does that mean? Oh my God, what does that mean? And so I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, if it gets to the point, and what it all hinged on was the resurrection. If it gets to the point that the resurrection is not only possible, but probable, and through this research, if I realize that, okay, it seems pretty, looking at the history of the church in the first century, looking at the Roman Empire, all that stuff, okay, it's pretty probable that this could have been the way it went down. Oh my God, so that kind of flipped something in my head. And so I basically said, okay, if that's true, then that C.S. Lewis once said, I was the most reluctant convert in all of England, because I knew that if that's true, that changes everything. It's going to change everything. And so, anyway, it ended up to the point where I was like, you know what? I can't deny this anymore. I think this is, oh my gosh, I think he really was who he claimed to be. So then after all of that, I finally was like, okay, now maybe I should dive into the Bible. I should actually read the Bible. And so I started looking into the scriptures. And then, of course, my world was blown up in a good way, in an amazing way. And psychologically, I started changing. I mean, still the same, you know me. I like to drink and have fun and play poker and all that. But, so I'm not, obviously, it's not that you become perfect. It's that you become perfect in Christ. And so you're still going to mess up. You're still a human being. And you're still going to, but like Bill Crafton once said this of Search Ministries here in Fort Worth. I'm not the man that I could be. I'm not the man that I should be. Thank God I'm not the man that I used to be. And that's a good mental way of looking at it. It's that, so I tell like these atheists in the Bible, I say, look, guys, I'm in this boat with you. I'm not, believe me, I screw up all the time. Ask my wife, but have I changed? Has the Holy Spirit done something to me? And I would say it has. And there's a couple of little examples of that. But, one being, Bill tells a great story. Again, this is a Bill Crafton story. That guy's unbelievable. He says there was a guy that he had just become a believer. He became a Christian. He was, oh man, this is great. I really feel the Holy Spirit, all this. He's like, all right, well, let me put you in this Bible study, right? You need to study up. And he's like, okay, I would love that. Well, after about a month, he calls Bill. He says, well, can we have lunch? And Bill's like, all right. And he goes, look, Bill, I've been in this Bible study for like a month. I've been a believer now for 6 months, and I can't be in this Bible study anymore. Bill's like, okay, well, what's going on? These guys are awesome. I mean, these guys are amazing human beings. I mean, they are just, I am in awe of these guys. And here I am struggling not to get drunk on a Saturday night. And Bill's like, okay, well, are you saying that you haven't seen a difference in yourself over the past 6 months? I mean, he's like, oh, no. 6 months ago, it would have been 4 nights a week that I would be struggling not to get drunk. So kind of his journey, that's his journey. So this guy's journey is, yeah, I'm still struggling, but hey, I mean, I guess 6 months ago, it was a hell of a lot worse, So, so I feel like the big misconception with the faith and what I've really grown to want to talk to people about is that it doesn't mean that you're this perfect human being. Everybody has a journey and a life story they're on. And some people come from dark places. Some people come from not so bad places. And so that's why we can't judge. That's why it's so imperative not to judge others. And Christians get a bad rap for that, unfortunately. And so that's that was my faith journey. And so anyway, so ended up becoming a believer. And another thing that helped with that, the caveat behind that, is 9/11. So 9/11 happened. While I was searching. I was in the midst of searching, so to speak, and studying when those planes hit those towers. And the amount of emotion that I felt after that was pretty insane. I mean, obviously, for the whole country. And one thing I noticed in post 9/11 New York that helped me also with the faith journey is the love that I saw in post 9/11 New York, how people came together and picked each other up. And so it kind of clued me into the idea of, okay, can something good come from something so evil? And there's a scripture in Romans where it says all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So it's like, wow. So as horrible as this event was, could good come out of it? Well, I'm seeing that in post 9/11 New York. People on the subways actually talking to each other and being friendly, and I walk home from my studio and on 57th Street right there. And these bunch of people are like, hey man, you want to come over and light a candle and sing? It's not like they were church people, I don't think. I mean, they were just regular people. So it was really a beautiful thing. And it bonded me to the city. My mom was like, oh, are you ready to move? I was like, no, they're not pushing me out. I'm staying, Yeah, so brave. I was like, I wasn't doing it. But so that's all of that kind of led to be where I am as far as my faith. And like I said, obviously not perfect, always making mistakes, always struggling, but it's been a great journey. I've definitely felt the change. I definitely feel that hope, the hope that, give people a reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect. And so I really appreciate you wanted to hear it because, I know that can be a heavy subject. So.
Man, it can, and that, like I said, the show is designed for high performers and intellects, right? Mm-hmm. Which means audience might agree, might disagree, might just be trying to learn, and it's really funny is I've known you for a decade, and one of the things I've enjoyed about the show is having people on that I thought I really, really knew and then learn something I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. And because I struggle with religion in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
which I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I mean,
as a matter of fact, growing up and, church was the thing, but kind of not really. And,
Right.
It was.
Did you grow up here? Did you grow up in Texas?
Yeah. Down in Burleson.
Oh, yeah.
And then, going into the Marine Corps, and then you just kind of fast forward to, it's kind of funny. So I've had, my old padre on before, Father Madison. And, and so like for me, this is why I'm always interested to hear other people's perspectives and journeys. And it's actually quite comforting for someone like me to go, I don't know, man, I don't want to get bamboozled here.
Right.
Like, what?
Right.
Because you do, I mean, you know a bit or two about my background, and I spent many a years standing in the face of evil.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Doing things and even responding and reacting to things that probably no human should ever have to do. And when you do and you see these bad things, it just makes you question,
Mm-hmm.
So is there a God? And,
why the heck is this happening?
Why? This doesn't make sense. And so it's really funny in a common topic, like, because me and my daughter talk about this, is not in the detail of things I've done or whatnot, or but like she went to Catholic school, but she grew up in a Methodist church, and so we had these conversations, and I just said, I said, I'll be honest with you. I said, I don't know if God will ever forgive me for the things I've done, but I've been working real hard the last number of years to at least try to facilitate the interview.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I get it, I get that, hey, Jesus died for your sins, blah, blah, blah. And I hear all that, and I'm like, hey, cool, man. But for me.
But does he know what I've done?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know he knows. I mean, it's like, I do believe there's God, and I do believe in Jesus. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I've been in places and in austere environments and just seen things that just doesn't really make a lot of sense sometimes. Right.
Right.
Like, well, why is he present here, but not
right.
there, and
right.
so forth.
Right.
And then, but you're right. You see, things very bad. The recourse of it is a lot of good things happen. Right.
Right.
And
right.
so that's why I make a joke, it's like, hey, I don't know. I've actually looked at my dad, my dad's old Vietnam vet, and said, I remember sitting in Costa Rica, and I said, do you think he'll ever forgive us for the shit that we've done?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I've worked for a long time, many years, try to at least do the right thing.
Yeah.
And so I can at least facilitate the interview. Or as some people joke, my wife goes, well, you probably live forever. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, he's going to say no, and then you'll have to go to hell, and the devil will be like, hell no, because you're going to try to start
just stay on earth.
You're
right?
just like, you're going to try to start a coup d'etat, I'll take this thing over. So no, you'll just have to live forever. But
just keep him on earth.
But it was really funny. And out of all places, I heard this. It was on that TV show Boston Legal.
Oh, okay.
Remember that with William Shatner?
Yeah.
And him and what was it? The guy's name in the show is Alan, I think, and it's played by James Spader. And they're sitting there having their little cigars and
on the balcony or whatever.
Right? Yeah. And Alan's a non-believer, and Denny's a believer, and Alan says, what is your proof? Like, what proof do you have? Like, why do you believe in God? And he said something that just, whether people agree with this, don't agree with this, I don't really care, right? Because this just made sense to me.
Yeah.
And he said, God's kind of like American Express card. Better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. And then he goes into further explaining. He goes, I think it's probably a better position to be in. It's better to believe in God, and it turns out to be no God, no harm, no foul.
Oh, yeah,
than to not believe in God, and it turns out there's a God, and, well, a little late to kind of go, now that I know,
Yeah.
So
in the apologetic circles, that's called Pascal's wager.
Yeah.
So there was a famous thinker called, I forgot his first name, but his last name was Pascal. And he goes, if I believe and it's not true, I haven't lost anything. And in fact, I probably gained a lot by just living maybe I've lived a better life, whatever. But if I don't believe and it turns out to be true, I've lost everything.
Yeah.
And so it's called Pascal's wager. So that's a very common, atheists really hate that argument. They hate that.
Oh yeah. Cause how do you argue it, right?
Well, and also it's a little bit of in intellectual circles, it's probably a little bit of a lazy argument.
Yeah. It's cop out. Right? It's kind of a cop out.
And so,
right? And I get it, because I'm sitting there and, because I get all the different sides of the arguments, then it's the, you introduce, like whenever I got to, TCU, and of course, by this time, I'd been in the Marines and in the PD and like I said, seen the worst that
seen all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Seen the worst that humanity can deliver. Right. And, I'd also seen the best that humanity could offer, so I go, look, it wasn't just all negative Nancy stuff here. I've seen the worst that humans can deliver, but I've also seen the absolute best.
Great stuff. Yep.
That humans can deliver, and like you said, 9/11, I think was a good example of that. Right. And, but living with this, conflict, but, so then, cause I've been there, I lived in China, right? Not a lot of Christianity in China, right? A lot of Buddhism, right? Although
the underground church in China has grown like wildfire.
Oh yeah,
over the past 50 years.
Well, just learn. So this is one of the funny things that I'd learned. So I'm taking this world religions class because I'm at TCU, and you go to TCU, you got to take world religion, and just learning kind of the other things because I've been in these places to see these other religions, right?
Right.
And which even to me, it's not just hearing about it. Hey, my neighbor across the street is Muslim. My neighbor to the left of me is an atheist. My neighbor to the right of me is Jewish, or whatever, the one down the street on the corner is a Buddhist or whatever, just like actually being in these places and seeing it. And then just sitting there wondering, like, God, if God is so big and all and powerful, then where's his presence here?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and why are there all the different? Yeah.
Right. So it does. It causes conflict. And so when I was going to All Saints Episcopal Church, right, and that was and I've had David Madison on here, Father Madison, and that was I'll just say this was a very dark time in my life, right? I was working through a few things, and
when you were at All Saints.
At All Saints, okay. Right? Yeah. So I had, let's see, this was 2003, 2004-ish. I was going to the junior college, wasn't at TCU yet, and so I had someone who wronged me pretty hard, right? And especially being a person who has the skill sets that military spent a lot of money training me to have these skill sets,
right?
That was where I wanted to go.
Right.
And then I had, so anybody listening to this, if you listen to the episode with David Madison, you hear more into it because I'm not going to spend the whole entire episode talking about it. But I just happened to be driving by All Saints, and it was just something weird, right? Like, man, I'm just going to go in here because I'd already made up my mind with what I was going to do, right? And for people like me that come from what my design, similar designs, when we're committed, people don't understand what that word committed means, right? Right. And so it's just really weird, and I do look at it and I do think that was God's way of saying, hey, why don't you just stop here,
Yeah.
What's the worst that happened?
So you're in a mad place.
Oh, I was mad. I was mad. I was angry. And the thing is, and I've never hidden the fact that I was designed to be a very violent person because you don't get to go join the military and go places and just go, oh yeah, no, we're here to hand out roses and see what everybody's doing, right? I was a tool. I was an instrument, right? But the thing is when a commitment is made, yeah, mad, violent, whatever you want to call it, but actually I was very calm. I accepted what, hey, this is a decision I've made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. I think back on it now, I think there was a guy going, hey, look, nothing to say you can't go fulfill your commitment afterwards. So what's 45 minutes going to hurt?
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think about that now, right? Because it just, it was just something that just said stop. Right? Yeah. Not necessarily stop what I'm doing, just like, hey, just what's it going to hurt?
Yeah.
And then so anyhow, so I go in there and, and this is how committed I was to my decision is I was wearing a suit. And I was wearing a suit.
How old were you at this time?
Oh, so this is 03, 04. I was probably about 30.
Okay.
Right? I was 29, 30.
Okay.
Right? I'm trying to remember exactly what year it was. And the thing was I was so committed to my decision. I was like, well, if I get my mug shot, I at least want to look good in a suit.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I'm in there, and you know how it is, and you hear this a million times. They're up there on there, and they're talking, and it feels like they're looking straight at you and talking to you. And I was like, all right, okay. And then so as I'm walking out, you got the Padres down there. Hey, thanks for coming. Good to see you, Bob. Whoever else. And a guy named Father Mackin, he goes, I'm Father Mackin. He goes, what's your name? And I said, Jeremy Spann. And he shakes my hand and he goes, hey, you look like you got something important on your mind. And I was like, you have no idea.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right?
Seriously.
And he said, I don't know what it is. And he goes, I don't know where you're going. But he goes, but my guess is, wherever that is, and whatever it is, can it wait till tomorrow afternoon? And it was just kind of funny, right?
How interesting.
You hear this and you're like, yeah, I could probably go do that tomorrow too. I could do it on Tuesday. I can do it any day, anytime, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, all right.
Did he want to talk to you after that?
Yeah. And he goes, why don't you be here tomorrow morning? And I said, okay. And then so, but just that, you can call it an intervention, you can call it a pause button or whatever.
Wow.
It was enough that I call it that light switch that we're trained to have, right? That when it's go time, it's go time. That light switch goes off, you got to put emotion out. You got to be mission focused, right?
Right.
And it caused that light switch to turn back on, right? Because I'd turn the light switch off. When it's dark, you don't have to look at anything.
Right.
The light came back on. It was like, so then, and just that forced, and it was probably less than 24 hours from the time I walked out of there to the time I was sitting back down there in his office having a conversation with him. And it was enough that, like you say, when you said changed everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, changed everything. Because I can tell you, had I fulfilled a commitment I had made, well, we wouldn't be sitting here in this room having this conversation today, right?
So you were looking for, call it revenge, vengeance. Maybe in your head.
It's really
justice.
It's really
like
maybe justice.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the right word. And this was really hard to explain to folks that are, like I said, it hadn't really been designed to be the tool that I was designed to be, right?
Yeah.
An instrument.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
sure.
And so it just there was really not a lot of emotion. It was just like, that happened. This should be the consequence. And I'm here to go deliver the consequence. Right.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was just it's very unemotional. Like I said, very calm.
Yeah.
Wasn't angry. It was just like,
it's like
I'm there to go do a job.
Yeah, you're on a mission.
Yeah, I'm there to go do a job, right? And so it was enough to kind of, whoa, hold on a second. And then so it did, but I would still struggle from then, now call it almost 20 years later, still struggle with things. But I did know this, right? Because I don't ever believe I've ever been a bad person. I don't believe I've ever been an evil person. I believe that I have been designed to go do things that people probably shouldn't have to be designed. I mean, look, nobody wants peace and the avoidance of violence more than people that have served in the role to dispense violence on your behalf.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we're the ones that go do the dirty work. Right? Real easy for people to go, we should go into Ukraine and fight the Russians. So you're gonna go volunteer to do that? No. You're gonna sit there from your couch and go, we shouldn't. By we, you mean me.
Right.
Or
the arms start. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. You get the point, right? Like, yeah, you want us to go put our stuff on the line, and I don't care how controversial anybody else thinks it. And like, especially with this thing going on with Russia and Ukraine, is like, wait, so you want me to go be committed because you feel strongly? Like, hey, I'm not here to argue. Have the Ukrainians been wronged by the Russians and Putin? Hell yeah, and I'm not going to argue that. But here's the deal is you want us to get all wound up and go in there and get in the fight, which, by the way, is not going to be helpful for anybody.
Right.
right?
It's
But
more
you want me
complicated.
to, you want me to do that less than a year after this government, and I'm not pointing to the left, I'm not pointing to the right, I'm pointing to all of them.
Right.
How you treated us getting out of Afghanistan. Apparently we didn't learn a damn thing out of Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And now you want me to trust you guys
Yeah.
to make the right decisions to go put us in the fight?
Right.
No.
Right.
No. Because I know what I'm capable of. I know what our people are capable of. I know what we can do, and we're damn good at it.
Yeah.
It's the reason we've been at the top of the food chain for so long.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I know, just those thoughts and feelings, right? It still kind of brings me back to, So I've never done anything, I don't want to say I've done anything bad or done anything evil or anything else like that. I won't say that I haven't done violent things, because that's exactly what I was designed to do, was do violent things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The only way to fight violence is to create a physics equation of be more violent than the violence that's coming at us. Right. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Right. But I do know that my whole life, I've always tried to be, good for people and stuff like that. And I do know that, especially, that day of walking into All Saints is my commitment changed to, I'm at least going to facilitate the interview. I'm at least going to do enough great things, and in as much of an abundance as I can to at least facilitate the interview, right? And that's just kind of what my mindset has been towards it, right? I want to at least plead my case.
Right.
Get up there and go, hey, look, I don't know if this is all BS or if I really get a shot because I tried to do the right thing, try to believe in all that, but I at least want to be able to get the interview.
Yeah.
Because of all the things I have done
in
my life, right?
I mean, the good news is everybody's going to get the interview. Every single person on the planet.
Yeah.
The interesting thing you're talking about, though, that I think what's revolving around this is, I'm gonna use a Tim Keller analogy of basically what has happened is he started this whole talk. Keep in mind, he's a pastor. He started this whole talk at a group of kids at UC Berkeley I think it was 2009. And they're, of course, UC Berkeley, right? So they're all atheist agnostics, in the crowd. And he goes, I do want to start off by saying that I do think religion is a big part of the problem. And everyone's just ghastly silent. He goes, so now that we're all in agreement, and then they all laughed because it broke the ice. He goes, so now that we're all in agreement that religion's a big part of the problem, I hope to explain why I think Christianity is at the heart of the solution. And so one thing he says in that speech, and it's an amazing talk, but one of the things he talks about is the two types of narratives that seem to be going around right now, that one of them is wrong and one of them is right based on what Christianity truly is. And you see it a lot in the South because the South is Bible Belt, religious. So there's religion and then there's the relationship. So what he called it is the moral-based narrative versus the grace-based narrative. And so he goes, unfortunately, a lot of Christians who claim to be Christian, they fall into the moral-based narrative. Well, what is that? Well, and I do it too. I fall into it too. But he goes, what it is, well, I'm going to work hard to help people. I'm going to help the poor. I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to pray. I'm going to go to church on Sunday. Look how good I am. Look how good I'm doing. I'm going to work my way to heaven. There it is. Look at me. God, you should be proud of me, Well, he goes, that's the moral-based narrative. And he goes, and it's exhausting. And he goes, and you don't have to do it, Christian, because you have the gospel. So he goes, okay, so what is the gospel? What does that say? Well, the gospel says me, Tim Keller, and he puts it on himself. I am a sinner. I am broken. I don't even live up to my own standard of what's good, right? I mean, I mess up all the time. But it doesn't matter because Jesus takes that on himself. So the grace-based narrative takes away what happens with the moral-based narrative is that it turns people into caricatures of each other. So, a caricature like big nose, you draw the big ears. Well, he says what happens is, look at me, I'm a good Christian. Oh, and you're not. Okay. I'm better than you. Look how good I am. And he goes, and that's toxic. And it's not the case, because the true believer will say, hey, I'm right in that boat with you, buddy. Oh my gosh. Thank the Lord that I have Jesus to help. So the grace-based narrative takes away that slippery slope of judgment. And so I think that, I guess what I'm telling you, Jeremy, is I don't want you to put pressure on yourself about have I worked hard enough. It doesn't matter.
Well, see, it's funny is I get what you're saying, right, on the moral-based narrative. But what makes the moral-based narrative true is who you're comparing yourself to.
Right.
Right?
You're always in comparison.
I'm not comparing myself to anybody. I'm not comparing, hey, I did 10 good deeds, you did 9, haha, beat you, or any of that. It is just, I'm going to do the best I can absolutely do. So that way the odds are hopefully more in my favor, once the interview is facilitated.
And see, what I'm saying is the true gospel, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like the gospel says that God sees you because he sees Christ in you. It's not because of what you've done.
Yeah.
Now, I think that as Tim Keller says, it is not we obey to be loved. Because a lot of religions fall in that camp.
Yeah.
I'm going to work, I'm going to work hard. I got to work hard so God loves me. I got to work hard to prove myself. Well, Christianity doesn't say that. Christianity says, no. You are loved already. Therefore, you naturally want to obey. It's not that you feel like you are compelled to or you have to. You want to. So it's an after effect of the love that you've already received. And I think that that's the hardest thing. Like, so many religions say, I'm going to climb up to heaven to reach God. I have to reach him. Well, Christianity says, no. I'm going to come down to you. Don't worry. I'm going to come down to you and do this for you because you can't do it on your own. And that gets into the whole human depravity thing, which talking about what you were saying about what you've seen and the suffering. Yeah. All I would say there is one of the hardest things that atheists have a problem with Christianity is the idea of human depravity.
Yeah.
So they don't like to be told that they're sinners, that they're broken.
Yeah.
No. What are you talking? I'm a good person. Well, compared to me, yeah, you're probably a great person.
Yeah.
But that's not the standard. What's the standard?
Right.
And a perfect and holy God is the standard. So when you think of human depravity, and the Bible also does not shy away at all. One thing that's helped me when I started finally studying the Bible in New York is that, okay, this is not shying away from the fact that there's going to be suffering and there's going to be a lot of it. And it's going to suck. And it's going to be tribulations and trials. And Jesus says, don't be surprised if the world hates you. It hated me first. So there's all of that in there. And then you see the world around you and you're like, well, okay, that makes sense. Look at the suffering. Look at all this crap. So it's heartbreaking, but it's like, okay, the Bible at least is being honest about it.
Yeah.
And I tell an atheist, they go, well, how does atheism explain that? The suffering and all that, so it can't. Because we're just floating in the breeze, So that's kind of the caveat. And that's what I found out is that, thank God it's not up to me. Good Lord, Bill Crafton even said, if it's up to me, I'm toast.
Yeah,
But you know what? It's like, you go to the gates of St. Peter, and you go to the gates of heaven, and St. Peter says, "Why should I let you in?" 9 times out of 10, people are going to say, "Well, I've been a pretty good person. It's not like I've killed anybody. It's not like I'm Hitler." Yeah. I haven't, I've lived a pretty good life. Technically, according to the gospel, that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
The technical right answer is like, well, why should I let you in? I truthfully can't think of one reason, but I pray that you see Christ in me.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the caveat, and that's what makes the gospel so hard to swallow. I think that it's offensive to a lot of people because, which I don't blame them, because it is. It's tough.
And it's funny you say that, right? Because I get what you're saying about the difference between, the two, right? And I'm probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to compare myself, look at what I've done, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I don't know.
I need to get some,
I've checked some boxes here, and don't get me wrong, I've read Saul, Paul, all that. Then I see things like a recent deal that I worked with, somebody that I had a lot of admiration for and a lot of respect for and done a previous deal with, who pounds his chest of, I'm a Christian, go to church on Sundays, try to do good for everybody else. And the deal got hard, right? And there were some unnecessary reasons from both sides of why it got hard, right? So we both could we could both admit that we both played a part where the deal got a little hard. But where I tried to stay fair and, and on point and ethical and moral, here's somebody that, beats the chest, hey, Bible on Sundays and everything else, sure had a lot of actions along the way from there that did not align with the words.
Yep.
And I was like, okay. Now,
Absolutely.
I'm not blaming God or anybody else for that. But I think that all too many times we see those examples of like, you go around and tout yourself as one thing.
Yeah.
But when the dinner bell rings, we find out how you really are. And I do believe a saying that I heard from a very good friend of mine in my MBA, Johannes King, is when they show you who they are, believe them, they're not lying to you.
Yeah. Because they're showing you.
They're showing you, right? When things get stressful, things get tough. These are the behaviors. Well, it doesn't sound like the things you go around preaching.
Right.
So, but when things got real, you can't change the stripes on a tiger, I guess.
You know what's so funny about what you just said?
Yeah.
This is fascinating. Do you know the number one group in the New Testament so Jesus, obviously, right? He loved sinners. He had tax collectors. He loves all these people. The one group that he got the most agitated with, where you saw his righteous anger, is the religious elite, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who do just that. They parade their religion in public. Look how good I am. I'm going to pray out loud to everybody. And yet he goes,
how many youth camps I took down to whatever country, what I do on Sundays. Oh, I helped this one person. Like an example was, we have this one person in this one place, and and the reason the rent's so low is doing a favor for them because they were in a bad situation.
Yeah, and they're kind of showing off about it. Yeah,
right. And then it turns out that when it's all said and done, I was like, so when it came push comes to shove, that's the first person you screwed in this deal.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is absolutely amazing. Yeah. And he said in there, he goes, "You den of vipers."
Yeah.
And he said, "You hypocrites.
Yeah.
Your lips praise me." Because if you've
exactly
seen me, you've seen the Father.
Yeah.
Your lips praise me, but your hearts are far from me. So he called them out.
Yeah.
And they tried to call him out, which eventually is why they killed him. And so it's a very fascinating thing when I hear people say that, because
and the only thing that could remotely change my mind, that might have a chance of changing my mind on this person, and I could.
If he admits it, maybe he comes back.
It would be hey, can we go get face to face, get a cup of coffee, get whatever, and then just go, hey, look, I think there was enough blame to go around, but I would like to go ahead and publicly say to you, these are the behaviors I know that I demonstrated that as, and I really didn't want that to come out.
Yeah.
But I apologize. If I could go back and do it different, I would have done this different.
You want him to get humble. You want him to get humble.
Right. And then it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you know why? This person has an ego.
Yeah.
Right? And that's really what came out in this was ego, entitlement, and blame. Yeah. And who knows, maybe he had shame in the end of it, because I call that the quadrant of death. You're operating in one of those four, that's not good. Operating in two of those at the same time, that's bad. You're operating in three of the four, that is dangerous. And if you're operating in four of the four, that's catastrophic.
It's interesting what there was something that happened, and I know everyone's talking about the Will Smith slap and all that, but it was interesting what Denzel Washington said that Will Smith repeated. Will Smith said, Denzel told me that whenever you get on top, that's when the devil comes for you.
Yeah.
And what he meant was, you get all high and mighty on your high horse.
Mm-hmm.
Pride before the fall.
That's it, man.
So human nature is as you've seen, and I love talking to your buddy, Kurt Driver.
Yeah.
He told me one time, I was asking him his experience as being a police officer. And I was just asking kind of casually. I'm like, hey, so what was that? And he just got dead serious. And he goes, Gordon, let me tell you something. There are sheep and there are wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And there are sheepdogs. We try our best to be the sheepdogs. But the wolves are out there. I mean,
they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear y'all's stories of the pure evil you've seen.
Dude, and here's the funny thing is people want to pretend like there's not a lot of wolves out there.
Right.
Oh, they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're dressed in sheep's clothing, and they're just waiting for that opportunity. Seen it.
Yeah.
Right? Spent between the Marines and PD, 25 years of my life being in that world, watching it firsthand. And that's why I like when I hear things like defund the police and all this, I was like, do you really want? 'Cause let me tell you what,
Good
you're
luck.
removing the one thing
that's stopping
that
the
is
wolf.
stopping the wolf from just taking off that sheep's clothing to be like, I don't even care if you see me coming.
Yeah.
And I'm a-coming. And
Yeah.
when they do, man, once they get that momentum, it takes a lot to put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah. William Knight, who's a friend of mine, and he's in my BSF class, actually, my Bible study fellowship. He is a counselor. He's a district attorney, and he deals with a lot of sexual cases, exploitation. And he says there have been more than one time, Gordon, where I have been in a courtroom and the defendant has walked in that door and I've just felt this darkness descend. I mean, it's weird. He goes, it's the weirdest thing.
Man, I'm telling you. So when I was, when I worked sex crimes for a long time, and then when you and I met, I was working human trafficking, right?
Oh,
Let
yeah.
me just tell you, those are some folks right there that are. I mean, it is a level of evil that you can just see it off of them, you know. And it was kind of funny. I had someone, this is a couple of years ago, goes, well, couldn't you be considered evil? I mean, you've done very, very violent things. And I go, I could see how they would be misconstrued.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure,
I said,
misconstrued. Yeah.
I was an instrument. I was a number, and I was a very good instrument. It was a very effective instrument.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I was willing to be that instrument of violence was to protect you.
Yeah. To protect the
I was
innocent.
willing to go stand in the face of violence and demonstrate violence so that way it didn't show up on your front doorstep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you want to look at me and say, well, it takes evil to protect evil, call it whatever you want. I get it. I get how that can be very confusing. But I said, let me tell you something. There is evil out there that is not trying to be evil to other evil to prevent them from getting on your doorstep. That evil out there is doing everything they can to get in your doorstep.
Yeah.
And they will never stop trying.
Yeah.
And that's why, now is a time where we instead of, defund the police are bad, blah, blah, blah. And, man, look, my last job before I, dropped papers to leave is I was running internal affairs in the 12th largest police department in the United States. People go, oh, man, that job must suck. And I says, well, it was suck dealing with politics and stuff.
Yeah.
That's really where it was at.
Yeah. That's like
We had a lot of people with stars. And the good thing is I don't care if they're listening to this. I don't care what they think.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of, one person with some stars does it this way. Another person with some stars does it this way. And there were agendas. There were political agendas. That's what I didn't like about it.
Any big group like that.
Right,
I mean,
right. And, because I was like, look, do officers do knucklehead stuff? Yeah, I did knucklehead stuff. I had days off without pay for doing knucklehead stuff. There are a handful, and I mean like literally one hand.
Yeah.
You count them on one hand. Bad officers did not belong there. We knew who they were, and we were trying to get rid of them as fast as we could, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because once we identified who they were, right? But it's a very, very small population. So instead of leaning away and supporting the very element that keeps the wolf at bay, right? Because the wolf is not gone. The wolf's wearing sheep's clothing, hoping that you don't find out that it's a wolf till he's not worried about not wearing that sheep's clothing anymore.
Right.
And they're sitting there, and you want to lean away instead of leaning into the very entity, which is the only stopping power.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, when wolves feel comfortable enough that they don't have to wear that sheep's clothing anymore, Bubba, it's going to be a tough time.
Yeah.
And it will take a considerable amount of time to, again, put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
So I do believe in good. I do believe in evil.
There's a great scene that I loved thinking exactly what you said, and I agree. And it always chokes me up when I watch the movie and see it. But there's a scene in A Few Good Men where they're kind of, Tom Cruise and the other guy and Demi Moore are kind of fighting about this whole concept of, he says, well, they tortured a younger kid. She says, why do you hate them so much? And he goes, because they tortured him. They didn't care. He couldn't run very fast. So they killed him, blah, 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 which obviously it turns out they didn't kill him on purpose. And as she's walking out, he says, why do you like them so much? And this is the greatest. Demi Moore turns to him and says, because they stand on a wall and they say nothing's going to bother you tonight. Mm-hmm. Not on my watch. And that's kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
It's like, and I thought that was a great line from that movie.
No, I know exactly what line you're talking about. Well, so I like to end every one of these going, let's say you opened up a time capsule and you had a magic device that said, hey, this is 20-year-old Gordon, and you have 5 minutes to fly back in time, and I'm willing to listen to one thing of do or don't do this that I will absolutely practice carrying forward. If you could turn back the hands of time to 20-year-old Gordon, what would you go back and tell 20-year-old Gordon?
Oh my gosh. 20-year-old Gordon. I think if I could tell 20-year-old Gordon one sentence, I would probably say, I'd be like, all right, Gordon, all this life you're living, the whole purpose of life, it's not about you. That's it. Life is not about you.
Have we had one yet? Not to date. So we are now 90. This will be our 92nd episode that we've recorded. We got another four more to go there, Gates, tomorrow.
That's all. Good grief.
And you know what?
That was exhausting, and you all have to do 4 of them.
Oh, dude, we're doing 16 this week, man. But here's what I'll tell you this. I ask that question at the end of every one of these. And we've had some that have been similar, but I haven't had anyone give the same one yet. 92 different responses.
That's amazing.
To date.
That's amazing.
That is candor.
That's pretty amazing.
That's what makes this, that's really what makes this show awesome and it is because when you kind of get caught with it, because you hear me say, hey, you're going to know we're at the end of this because this is what we're going to do.
Right.
You don't really think too much of it. And then when it's like, you've had a chance to sit here and talk about your journey, because and I think this is one of the things that the show does. How many people have ever sat down and said, hey, tell me your entire journey?
Yeah.
And you did it in one setting.
Yeah.
Usually people don't have attention span or want to listen, right? They want to interrupt. Oh, but wait, let me tell you mine.
Well, and you're talking over a drink and you're just BSing and it's like.
So I think that's part of why the magic happens when we ask that question, is because someone's been able to go back through their journey and go, you know what, actually, thinking about what I just talked about, if I had to go back, I think this is what I would say.
Yeah.
And that makes it really, really cool. All right. So
dude, that was awesome.
People got money. They want to spend it with G Money. Where do they go? How do they find you? Where do they?
Oh my gosh, we're actually talking business. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So my firm is Rhodes Securities. We're a broker dealer, registered investment advisor. The registered investment advisor is actually Rhodes Investment Advisors. But we go by Rhodes Securities, just to make it easier. And we basically help people with their nest egg. So if you have money that you need to invest in the stock market, public markets, we don't really do private placements or anything like that. And you need a good quarterback is what I tell people. It's like if you have your household wealth and you need a quarterback to put the ball in the right spot, then that's what we do. And we have about 20 independent financial advisors that kind of specialize. My dad once told me there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. And so in our business, there's a lot of different ways to invest, to skin a cat, so to speak. And so they all kind of have their own nuances. Some of them do 401k plans. Some of them just do individuals. Some of them like to work with families. So just, kind of pick your poison, so to speak. Yeah.
Where do they find you at? How do they get it?
So we are in the Fort Worth Club building down, but our phone number, 817-334-0455. We have a website, rhodessecurities.com, which gives all the disclosures and all that kind of fun stuff, licensed with FINRA, all that stuff. That's kind of it. Either the phone number, website. My email is gr@rsi2.com. So it's kind of that simple. You just write an intro, and usually if a prospect comes to me and says, hey, I might need your help, we have an intro meeting, maybe over a drink, maybe over a coffee, just to kind of see if we would be a good fit. And if they're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for them. So, because we don't want to work with someone that it might be a bad fit.
Yeah.
We want people to have the best experience. So
100%.
Yeah.
And if you were driving down the street and you didn't have a chance to write all that down as usual, you'll hear me say, go to our website, myexperiencedrealtor.com, experience with an ED. Click on podcast, scroll on down to Gordon Rhodes, and we will have this on the read more. And as always, if you're looking to buy and sell real estate anywhere on the planet, you can go to the homepage, click, find a trusted professional, and we will do all the vetting to make sure you get the right person. Gordon, thanks for coming.
Hey, man,
on the show,
thank you so much. That was awesome. A lot of fun.
Yeah.